When I started my YouTube channel, I was introduced to a whole new world of the Gothic subculture because the only one that I knew was the one that existed in real life. I've been involved in the Gothic subculture for quite some time, more than half my life, and the only interactions that I've really had, the majority of which have been in person as my experiences. So the subject of music, I received a bit of a culture shock, because when I initially started my channel, I came to find that that subject is known as something very heinous, and it's also seen as a faux pas and something that you don't speak of because it is associated with a grossly overused word, elitist or elitism. So what I wanted to discuss was a video made by Snowy Lowther, and that video was titled, "Are You a Goth If You Don't Listen to Goth Music?" Now, I'm not sure if that's the title verbatim, but that is basically the subject. And this is a subject that I've been seeing going around and around and around so often that I'm just at the point where, okay, enough is enough. It's not the fact that it's being asked. It's the fact that people are not answering the question honestly, or just not answering at all. Now, as far as the Gothic subculture is concerned, our go-to subject tends to be the music because it's our most common ground, but it is not this one-upping, holier-than-thou competition about who knows more, and it's certainly not what it's made out to be, and that is what's being circulated and regurgitated. But the reason that it's being circulated as such is for one reason alone, and that's popularity. And I'm fucking sick of it. I'm sorry. This video probably will offend. If it does, I do apologize. My intent is not to offend. My intent is to stop the spread of misinformation, and I want to give it to you straight because in the end, as far as my subscribers are concerned, I love the shit out of all of you. I have a community here and I freaking love it. But I would rather you think that I'm a dick and tell you the truth rather than lie to you and have you like me under false pretenses. The truth of the matter is nothing brings us more joy than sharing a band or a song that just completely blows your mind, because nothing can match that exhilaration. And sadly, this is a very little known fact, and I don't know if it's a fact that's been lost over time or something that people have been trying to bury. Snowy begins her video with what I took as a very inflammatory generalization that only elitists take the music seriously. Now, I don't think that's accurate nor fair to suggest that anybody who takes the music seriously is an elitist. Following that logic, is it fair to say that anybody who takes anything seriously is an elitist? My doctor, does she not take her job seriously? Must be elitist. Holy shit, we're surrounded. She further goes on to state that these elitists will not only judge you based upon the music that you listen to, but should you not listen to certain bands, then you're not a real goth. This to me almost sounds like a direct quote from a video I saw previously, which was more of a rage-fueled word salad than anything else, but I believe the quote was, well, if it isn't Bauhaus and it isn't Joy Division and it didn't come out in the 80s, well, then it's all bullshit. Now, this was used as a point to further that all goths are elitists. Snowy then says that these people will outright become offended if you don't like their favorite bands. I have never, ever been offended if somebody didn't like a band that I liked, nor have I ever seen it happen in reverse. And I don't know if it's different maybe where you're from, but typically where I'm from, we don't have one favorite band. We kind of have our sort of go-to groups. And for example, mine would be Skinny Puppy, Frontline Assembly. I like Wumpscott, Mephisto Walls, London After Midnight, The Frozen Autumn, Church. And these are sort of, bands that are involved in my group. So considering that we have not one but several, you would think that there would be a much higher instance of somebody becoming offended, but it's never happened. In general, if somebody doesn't share the same personal preference as you and then they become offended by that, this sounds more like a personal problem, like Kid A and Kid B fighting over whether Aquaman is awesome or a douche canoe. Now, that to me is indicative of poor socialization and immaturity, and definitely not elitism. In fact, it's something that you tend to see more here and not here. Snowy stated that she got involved in the subculture via the music, as did myself, and that people are becoming involved in the subculture today via the fashion, and that is because fashion is such a ubiquitous force, and you really have to dig to find the music. If you go on Instagram, you'll definitely find that goth is the go-to edgy look, and pop culture has most certainly taken notice. So it is definitely everywhere. Also, we live in an era where you turn to Google and you turn to YouTube whenever you want to learn about anything. And as somebody trying to learn about the subculture, you are absolutely overwhelmed by clothing hauls and transformation videos and makeup tutorials. So it's all very fashion driven. So when there's nothing there or very little about music nor functionality, there's nobody there to really tell them that, wait a minute, there's a little bit more to it. So yes, fashion is going to be the dominating force. Okay, so quoting Snowy almost verbatim, she says, okay, you're into the fashion now, it's time to get into the music. So she recommends the goth staples, and you have Susie, Bauhaus, Joy Division, Sisters of Mercy, The Cure, and you basically listen to that and go from there, and then you find yourself listening to the same Susie albums over and over again and finding that you don't like it. Just basically listening to it, just trying to fit in. Okay, so I see a major flaw with that statement. Now, this is a very broad list of bands from a person who's a self-proclaimed 80s addict. Now, these bands come from a very definitive period in the 80s where most of which people will consider post-punk. Now, if you don't like the sound of post-punk or you don't like anything particularly rocky, you're not going to like any of these bands, and you're going to hear this and think, oh wow, this is what goth is? Well, I fucking hate it. There are so many different types of music that fall under the umbrella of goth. We have goth rock, death rock, dark wave, post-punk, cold wave, ethereal, industrial, EBM, synth pop, new romantic. What am I missing? So when I hear somebody say that they don't like goth music when they've only really listened to the bare minimum like once or twice, it's like hearing somebody say that they don't like fruit juice even though they've only tried grape. There are many different juices out there waiting for you to discover, and if you don't like cranberry because it's a little bit tart for your taste, well, guess what? There's always mango because it's a little bit thicker, a little bit sweeter, and it's all just juice. As the video continues, I hear the word elitist thrown around literally at least 4 times in a 30-second period. Snowy stated that the word gothic existed before the music in the form of art, architecture, literature, and film. Yes, that may be so, but it's not at all the premise of the video, and it really has no significance here. Gothic refers to a period, an aesthetic, which created art and architecture and inspired literature and film. That doesn't mean that the aesthetic and the literature have nothing to do with the subculture. However, in a music-based discussion, it's not really relevant here. Salisbury Cathedral, The Cure. Snowy also goes on to state that goth is a mindset, and so long as you have that mindset, you can pick and choose which aspects you like and which aspects you don't like, and extract at will, including the music. And to me, that is incredibly discrediting to an entire subculture, and in my opinion, false. Everyone has their preferences and their individual personalities, and that is absolutely normal, because if not, we would be all the same, and that would just be boring as hell. That being said, there are going to be aspects about the subculture that you might disagree with, but that doesn't give anybody the authority to change an entire subculture to suit their preference and then have the audacity to chastise anybody who disagrees with them. You can't customize it by extracting the most important piece. It doesn't work like that. Mindset is a manner of thinking based on notions and ideas, and it's not based in fact. It's like approaching a group of metalheads and saying, although you don't like their music, you have the metal mindset and you've got the clothes. Snowy once again chides the goths who favor the music by saying that we can't disregard a person's feelings just because they can't get into our favorite band. Once again, I have to say I've never ever disregarded a person's feelings for any reason, let alone not being into a band that I happen to like. I don't know anybody that's ever done this. However, she's brought it up again, so clearly this is an issue, and this really begs the question, where is this happening? So I definitely want to ask all of you, have any of you ever been criticized personally by someone else for not liking any specific bands? Or have you done it to someone else maybe? I have a close friend who absolutely hates Sisters of Mercy. I don't care. I don't care what music you like. Just don't make out with my husband and we're cool. One of the things that she said that I actually do agree with is that if you haven't heard a goth band that you do like, explore it a little bit further and you're bound to find something that does resonate with you. Something that Snowy and I have in common is that music is what brought us into the subculture, but that's not true for everybody else. I know people who have had films pique their interest into the subculture, or even literature, or someone who saw their first corset. I know somebody who saw a corset and that was basically it for her, but as with all of them, here they are, involved within the subculture. So it doesn't necessarily have to be music that's your segue in. I can't tell you how often I get messages or comments from people describing themselves to me, desperate for answers, trying to find out whether or not I think that they're goth. And this is very bizarre to me. The thing is, they're confused and they genuinely don't know where they fit. Up until this point, I have been forever dodging that question because it's not for me to tell you who you are. I'll gladly give you my opinion, and I can tell you how things function based upon my 23 years within the subculture, but it's so important to be who you are and don't cave into pressure to be something that doesn't feel 100% authentic to you. In the grand scheme of things, you don't want to look back in 10 years' time and think of all the time that you wasted spending your life living it for somebody else. That being said, I think that it's very important that you are given the correct information. No falsehoods, no fabrications, no lies. It's not fair to a subculture that's suffering the backlash of all this information, and it's not fair to you who are just trying to find out more about yourself or what goth is all about, what it actually is all about. The truth is, so much of you that are feeling this confusion are feeling it due to a direct result of being fed false ideas for nothing more than a numbers game. The reason that certain goth YouTubers refuse to talk about the music, or others will openly insult and refer to anyone who takes the music seriously as an elitist, is doing that because they don't want to lose you as a subscriber. By avoiding the subject or claiming that the music is an interchangeable component or outright criticizing anybody that takes the music seriously by calling them an elitist, they're not alienating the rest of their audience, which could damage their subscriber count, thus reducing their overall revenue. If all of those who take an interest in the goth subculture or are curious and they take to YouTube to see what it's all about, and all they have are haul videos, reaction videos, transformation videos, goth reacts to transformation videos, what do they possibly stand to learn about the subculture? What does this do about how we're perceived? That's not to say that these videos can't be fun here or there, but it's not an accurate representation. And for somebody who doesn't know any better, how can they see it as anything otherwise? The big takeaway to all of this is that the gothic subculture is a costume contest, and the most extreme and elaborate one wins, and the ultimate prize is popularity. And popularity pays your rent and gets you tons of free shit and get out of jail free cards when you behave appallingly. People are often sensitive when they feel challenged or they don't know much about the very thing that they're purporting to be, and this is when they tend to lash out and the elitist card gets pulled. When you're new to the subculture, you're still learning, so nobody's going to begrudge you that time to discover. However, that issue becomes a very big problem when it comes to entitled people who have exploited the subculture and in some ways even appropriated it. They use the word elitist the moment their fragile self-image takes a hit, and that could just be as easy as saying bless you after they've sneezed. They make misguided, uninformed, untrue statements while openly claiming to hate us, but still claiming to be part of the subculture with their hands out asking you to fund their lifestyle. It wouldn't be that big of a deal if no one or nothing was affected, but the reality of it is that they're perpetuating this sense of entitlement and they're presenting this false front of what the subculture really is. Oh my god, I'm so distraught and triggered. A goth tried to engage me in a discussion about music, and only elitists talk about music. Ow, my feelings! Here's my P.O. box. Send me presents. Yes, goths do talk about music, but it's not as an act of elitism. It's a good opener, and it's our common ground. The point that I'm really trying to make is that as things evolve, as it's been going on for many, many years now, and I'm also, I'm definitely guilty of this, the younger generation are becoming more and more reliant upon technology for communication and for education. Whereas many of us were analog or a combination of digital and analog, that just means that we weren't susceptible to being led astray as far as what the scene was all about. We learned about what the goth scene was all about via first-hand experiences, and this was all pre-social media. Imagine for a moment that you are a budding pastry chef. You decide one day, this is what I'd like to do. So you take to YouTube to get an idea of what it's all about. And suddenly you are bombarded with videos for Twinkies, sponsored videos for high-priced kitchen supplies, and chefs reacting to cakes. Is it fair to say that you're not getting an accurate depiction of what being a pastry chef is all about? The thing is, I have no intentions of lying to you for personal gain. I care far too much about the subculture and the community that we've built to give you anything less than 100% honesty. So after a year, I'm finally going to answer your question. Do I believe that one can still be a goth even though they don't listen to any of the music that falls under the goth umbrella. No, I don't. My channel is pretty much 100% goth focused, but it's not specifically for goths. It's for anybody who finds it interesting. But if I manage to turn you in the process, I mean, this rule applies to my channel as well as real life. It's been that way since high school. I have friends who listen to rap, but they still love to come with me to goth nights. If you're not interested in the musical aspect, but you enjoy the aesthetic, you dress goth, you love the films, you love the literature, you love the architecture, you just love everything dark, there's a term for that, and that's darkly inclined. For some reason, not applying the label of goth to these people who have all of these dark interests and are not interested in the music became this massively terrible thing, and I have no idea why. Tim Burton, the very same mind that brought you Sleepy Hollow, Edward Scissorhands, Corpse Bride, Nightmare Before Christmas. You have Helena Bonham Carter. You have Neil Gaiman, who is one of the best authors, brought you Coraline. Alexander McQueen, one of my all-time favorite fashion designers. Edgar Allan Poe. And so many of the bands that we accepted within the Gothic subculture that are technically, we consider goth bands, all of these people are darkly inclined. We wear the clothes. Their art is on our walls. We quote the films. We read the literature. The only perspective that I can speak from is from my personal experience and all the things that I've learned, my 23 years involved within the subculture. Oh God, that makes me feel so old. But all that time that I've been involved within the subculture, and something that I've learned from day one that's an inherent part of who we are, is acceptance. We don't care if you listen to goth or not. We don't care if you wear all black. Just be real and please don't be a dick. In preparation for this video, I created a ton of playlists of every subgenre that I could possibly think of that falls under the goth umbrella. They're all categorized into their varying subgenres to help you find a sound that hopefully resonates with you. But if you don't, at least you can say, you know what, I've heard all the goth music that's out there, and I don't like it. One thing I ask is that you just give goth a chance. Bye.